So I'm sitting in a quiet place, a place to do some hard thinking. You could probably call it an intellectual sanctuary. Like I said, I'm sitting and thinking very hard about cows. Fun fact about cows, they sleep standing up, which makes cow tipping in the place that I'm from at least an extremely fun activity to engage in. So much so that I truly believe it should be added to the X Games as a sport. Problem is, that would mean the X Games would have to 1. Travel to a place every year with an abundance of cows, dangerous, or B. Ship a massive amount of cows to each place it is hosted in. How do you get them on the boat? It's tricky. That and the minor thing of animal rights activists probably hating the guts out of the person who thought up the horrible sport in the first place. Of course, I'm just kidding about all of this, because obviously the Olympics is the best choice to implement this. So why am I thinking about cows? Furthermore, why am I thinking about being cruel to these graceful and extremely tasty creatures? One simple trip. A trip that could arguably define who I am as an artist, a designer, a writer, and a radio personality. A trip to Boston for the How Design Live conference. You're probably asking yourself, what the hell do cows have to do with Boston? And further, what the hell do cows have to do with design? Well, to answer that, you have to know a little history of Boston. In a true designer fashion, I took my trip through a little bit of what you might call a design process. The research. A little known fact or myth about Boston is that cows designed the street system. Yeah, I said it. Cows. Historians argue the validity of this assertion, but I found this extremely amusing at first. Then I started walking the streets of Boston, and walking. And about an hour later, I realized I walked from the Boston Common all the way to the Zakim Bridge. Now, to a native or someone who has lived in Boston for a while, that may not seem like a long way. But I'm from El Paso. We don't walk in El Paso. Hashtag most obese city in America. Although, we're an extremely happy city. Hashtag fatties not saddies. Ultimately, we don't care what people think of us. Hashtag it's all good EP. We in El Paso don't have the luxury of a hipster train system or fancy bike share. So I slowly but surely grew to hate these cows that at one time traversed the land to graze and stupidly, or smartly, if that's a word, would follow their same path to the grasslands over and over again. So much so that it created pathways to pasture. These pathways eventually grew into road systems, which eventually paved the way to the current transit system in one of the most confusing map systems graphically I've ever seen in my life. Truly. Look at this map. There aren't any straight lines, or definite right angles. Wait, sorry. That's my daughter's rendition of the Mona Lisa. Here we go. See? It really looks like a bunch of dum-dums walked around aimlessly, and one of them thought it was a great idea to keep it that way. Forgive me, cows, you are not idiots. You are delicious, though. It is not my intention to offend these tasty animals, nor offend lovers of cows, or the people that paved these pathways over, forever cementing this aimlessness into the future. The concept. So now that I found all kinds of useful information at the heart of what is one of the most interesting cities historically that I've ever been to, besides my own of course, it was time for me to conceptualize my presentation. How am I supposed to present all of this information, mesh it with all the historically accurate information that I grew privy to in my short tours of Boston, all while basing it around a graphic design premise? How about a graph? Boring. Plus, it makes no sense. So I took what I learned in Jim Krause's session and applied it. Jim Krause, for those of you that don't know who he is, he's an author, and he writes books about graphic design. Yes, we have those, and he's a great one. His work has touched the likes of Microsoft, Kodak, Levi Strauss. In his session, he taught us the importance of exercise in design, like a little design workout. His book D30 gives you 30 design exercises you can do to help your creative process. He gave us 7, So I'll give you two. Two that I actually practiced while at the conference at least. 1. Draw swirling swirls. Alright, so I started. And eventually what happened was the worst thing I'd ever drawn in my life, period. This beefy dude that reminded me of my childhood when I used to draw superheroes back in the day. You know, the kind that have like 4 or 5 biceps and triceps and they kind of just pile on top of each other. Yeah, not sure that's what he wanted us to do. Alright, so on to the next one I wanted to try. Take a photographically imperfect photo. He says in his session that just about all photographs can be viewed as art. So this one is okay, except the damn coffee cup in the back. Totally ruins the wicked high five. Okay, so I lost track there. Now that my exercises were done, I got back to the concept making. This little voice in my head started creeping in there.
You can't come up with any concept. They have all been taken. You should just give up now.
First off, I'm thinking, why am I listening to this inner voice? Second, why in God's name does my inner voice sound like the 1.0 version of Siri? I have no idea. I thought, this feels an awful lot like Danny Gregory's Shut Your Monkey, How to Control Your Inner Critic and Unleash Your Creativity. So I took his advice and started asking the voiced questions back. What if I can't come up with a concept? The inner voice will say,
well, everyone will laugh at you, and then your bosses will be mad that they sent you across the country for nothing, and then they will fire you from your job, and you will not be able to pay the bills, and then you will go to jail for being financially irresponsible, and finally you will end up in prison being Smiley and Clown Face's little puppet. All because you couldn't come up with a concept.
I thought, that is ridiculous. So I don't have a concept. So what? I'll figure out a way to get this information that's in my brain and out to the rest of the world somehow, some way. I mean, what did Andy and Alex from Fresh Market do when they gathered crazy ideas for their concepts? Music. Boom. I'll listen to music and then I'll be inspired. Maybe it will help me even name this new project of mine. Everybody wants to rule the world of design. Or sowing the seeds of love for design. Or even better, shout for design. Yeah, that probably just puts a giant spotlight on my love for Tears for Fears. Maybe I'll create a slideshow showing everyone what I saw on my trip with music playing in the background. What would that look like? Nah, that's been done before. Completely unoriginal. What about Sebastian Padilla from Anagrama? In his session, he explained they design through collision, colliding graphics with everyday things that you may normally look over on a day-to-day basis. So maybe I'll take this banana, and this apple, and, well, I got hungry, and I forgot what I was supposed to be doing. So I'm conceptless still, if that's a word. I feel like Stanley Hainsworth really put things into perspective for me. We are the stories we tell. Am I as chaotic as this story I'm telling you now? Or at least as chaotic as his hair? This story about how I simply cannot find a concept to present to you all that will explain at least a little bit of what I experienced at the conference. Or should I break things down like Maria Popova in her blog, who when I first read it thought she really did only learn 7 things in 7 years of living, given her title on the course. But she says, allow yourself the uncomfortable luxury of changing your mind. Basically, don't cling so hard to those opinions you just formed from reading that Facebook post, especially since the post you're about to see in a few days will probably contain a rebuttal to what you just read about, should you decide to click it. Well, I can check the box on this one, because I flip-flopped on how I'm going to present this to you all more than a kid trying to pick an ice cream from a sticker-laden ice cream truck. Do nothing for prestige, or status, or money, or approval alone. Well, I believe that completely describes hipsters, right? Check. If I lived that way, then I wouldn't be a graphic designer. Dollar signs are not exactly what you would surround a graphic designer with. She also says, be generous. I've thought about this a lot. I often look at people who I really may not like too much and then picture them crying. Not because I want them to cry, but because it puts their feelings into perspective for me. I can definitely put aside my grievances to make a person smile no matter how I may feel about said person. Check. Number 4. Build pockets of stillness into your life. This one is especially hard for me. I move at 1 million miles per hour, but I really find that having a daughter centers me, and I often find myself in those pockets with her all the time. In all honesty, I think everyone should have one. A daughter, I mean. Check. Number 5. When people try to tell you who you are, don't believe them. Check, check, check. If I ever let any perception that someone had of me get in the way, then I would not be telling this story right now. You know what they say? The truth about you is always furthest from the mouth of your enemy. Number 6. Presence is far more intricate and rewarding an art than productivity. Basically, go out, enjoy the world, be somewhere as if somewhere is where you have to be. Check. Finally, number 7. Expect anything worthwhile to take a long time. Mind blown. My answer. I have still yet to come to a concept, but now at least I know it will not be easy, and I know it will take a long time. Here's a concept. I could try writing a blog, but people don't read these days. No one wants to get on Facebook in the morning, read a 2-paragraph post that explains all about an article you just posted on your blog. Hell, people don't want to even read packaging labels these days. Joshua Frulinger for Engadget conducted a focus group on how people interact with packaging. They learned that 95% of all returned products still worked perfectly fine. What they learned in the study was that 95% of consumers just don't read. Interesting. The most important thing to start with is listen to your consumer. Ask questions before creating any concepts, because packaging can affect people's experiences of products. Interesting. And last, but most important, written text does not work. People want to see how to do things, not read how to do things. Take a cue from the emergency plane manuals. They've had those things out for years. It's all pictures. The only important piece of copy you should supply on anything you are trying to sell is this. And that little line of copy should provide all the information any consumer should potentially need. Okay, so back to the concept. Storytelling absolutely seemed to be the theme of the How Design Live conference. Maybe it was always the theme. I don't know. This was my first one. But I do know I heard that buzzword a bunch of times. So maybe that's what I'll do. I'll tell you a little bit about this inspirational woman that I truly feel is like half woman, half amazing. Dana Tanamachi, a fellow Texan, born and raised. She currently resides in New York under her own studio's moniker Tanamachi Studio. She told us that she was just your average graphic designer trying to work her way through the city and make a living. Her friends had all but packed up and left for home, and she was on the verge herself when her father sent her a letter reminding her why she was there. It was a list of accomplishments she had planned out 5 years from the point of graduation from high school, and she had already completed most of them, so she decided to stay. Fast forward a little bit to a bar, where most of her creative inspiration is born and shortly after forgotten, if it weren't for things like cameras. So her and a friend were at a bar, and the bar had just painted a wall with that new chalk paint that everybody was yamming about on Reddit. So they go to work on the wall and created a simple typographical chalk art that framed you to take selfies in front of. Genius. So the selfies combined with Facebook went viral. Soon a wedding came, and then shortly after, she was commissioned for bigger and better things. So what was really cool was at the conference, she was asked by the United Nations to do some chalk art for them, which was pretty amazing to watch. Anyway, big shout out to Dana Tanamachi. I think that's enough storytelling for right now. So here I am, stuck like a writer with writer's block, sitting at a nice place to do some hard thinking. I have cows on my mind, and I can't seem to find the proper way to let you all know what I experienced at the Boston How Design Live conference. I wish there was some way to do this properly. I'll keep searching, and working of course. I know I can figure it out. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video about my trip to the How Design shit.